Hello my trigger happy friends, my name is Stevie Gade and welcome to Film Trigger. Thank you for joining me as I continue my review series on all the A Nightmare on Elm Street films. If you'd like to check out my previous videos leading up to this one, please click right here and it will direct you right to that playlist. But before we get started, if you could, hit that subscribe button and the little bell ding thing so you get notified every time I upload a new video. Alright guys, without further ado, let's dive into my review for A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. This movie is a huge part of my life. I love this movie, and many will argue that this is the quintessential A Nightmare on Elm Street movie to watch. And I wouldn't argue with that fact. But before I dive into what I don't like, what I'm on the fence about, and what I do like about this movie, I do have a couple of petty points. Not many, I think just like two. I think I have only 2 petty points in this film. These are points in the film that I don't really critique the movie over. Just some things I noticed that either put me off in one way or another. And yeah, just me being petty, pretty much. First of all, the writing on Joey's body, when Freddy carves into his body saying, you know, come and get him, bitch, or something like that. This is obviously a good horror moment of the film, but to me, it's like, realistically, does nobody notice this happening? Or if they do notice it, Nancy is the one who's going to get blamed for this moment because she's the only one in the room at the hospital when this happens. I get it, it's a horror moment and it does have shock value. But with that being said, it wouldn't have been too hard to have somebody else in a room, like a doctor who witnessed it. And when the officials come in to check it out, maybe everything's up in question because Nancy is not only there, but so is this doctor who also saw this happen out of thin air. Petty point. That's the reason why I have petty points, because I notice stupid shit like that and think about it. That's my life. And the only other petty point I have is in the dream sequence when Freddy's doing the whole, you know, drug dealer thing. Let's get high. I just think it was a missed opportunity for Jake's bar to be called Freddy's bar. I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one who's ever thought that, but come on, you're in Freddy's dream world. I think Freddy's vain enough to have it be called Freddy's bar. I mean, who the hell is Jake anyway? Fucking Jake.
It's Jake from State Farm.
Now moving right along with what I don't like about this movie, and the reason why I'm starting off with what I don't like about these films is because, well, I want to end on a high note. I want to end with some positive thinking. So with that being said, let's dive into what I don't like about this movie. Dr. Gordon, you're kind of a weenie. I don't really like his character. I don't think that actor playing him is doing a bad job. I think he's doing what he's supposed to do or what they wanted him to do. I just don't like the character. I don't think he fits into this film as well as everyone else. He sticks out like a sore thumb. That might be what they were going for. Every time I watch this film, I always notice that he's just a little too Boy Scout. And he has no real convictions, to be honest. I mean, let's talk about the moment Nancy wants to give the kids this new experimental dream suppressor drug. I mean, he stood up like a doctor should and said, whoa, let's not do that. Followed up by not too long after him putting his job on the line so he can give these children experimental drugs. Little flip-floppy there, Dr. Gordon. And to be honest, do they even use that dream suppressant anyway? I don't recall at any point in this movie where they use the dream suppressant. It's never actually used in the movie. Not that I noticed. I mean, if there's a small little part that I didn't notice and I missed, please let me know in the comments below. But in my mind, he wants to give these kids this dream suppressant, and immediately after, they have this secret group therapy session where they put the kids to sleep. He puts all of them to sleep. I mean, what was the point of even bringing the dream suppressant up for the students? It makes sense that Nancy would have it, and they could have just left that there, or they could have made it a more pivotal part of the story. I don't know. They didn't use it. I don't like it. It was a throwaway moment in the movie for me. And while we're on the subject, what is safe about having this group therapy session? Why would he decide right now is the best time to take all these kids who are scared to death to fall asleep because someone's killing them in their dreams, and he's seen pretty good proof of that? Let's just put them all to sleep in the same room. That's a good idea. But not only that, there's no safety net. There's nobody who stays awake for this moment to, you know, be there in case somebody needs to wake anybody up because, you know, they're getting murdered. He has them trapped in the dream realm. I think Dr. Gordon and Nancy was supposed to stay awake, but they didn't. They failed at that, if that was their goal. So that was a convenient story plot there. What kind of sick science experiment is this? Now going back to Dr. Gordon, I think the relationship they try to hint at between him and Nancy, It's gross. It's weird. I don't think they fit as a couple. I don't think Nancy would find him attractive. Or maybe she just likes that type of person because they're so aloof to everything going on. Especially Dr. Gordon, who seems to be wishy-washy about everything that he does. And yes, you could argue with me, well, that's his character development. And you're not wrong, but again, it just doesn't fit for me in this film. Another thing I don't like about this movie is Freddy's voice. Well, I mean, sometimes I like it. I guess I like all of Freddy's voice in a sense, but it's inconsistent. There's two different Freddy voices we get. We get Robert Englund's regular Freddy voice.
Why should we fight? We're old friends, you and I.
And then we get this voice that has some effect added to it to make him sound more menacing and deeper and grosser.
Let's get hard.
I just don't understand the inconsistency of it. I mean, this is a pretty well thought out film. Why would they only decide to add those effects in some parts of the movie? I'm not quite sure. Maybe it was an oversight. Maybe the budget ran low. I don't know. But it just seems weird to me that he has two different types of voice in this film. This almost was a petty point, but I thought it was prominent enough to actually be a part of my critique. Or observation, or whatever you want to call what I do on this channel. I mean, I do like Englund's voice. I think it works just fine. It worked great in the first film, but I also do like the enhanced voice. So I guess my bottom line is choose one. Just choose one voice and roll with it. Now lastly, what I have on my what I don't like list is how they did the whole bit with Nancy's dad coming to her and saying his goodbyes. I just feel like Nancy's smart enough to know that this is a trick. I mean, they are in the dream realm and, you know, deaf dude screaming, no, or stop, or whatever he screamed. She should know that's not enough to kill Freddy. It's not. It's just not, oh, all the mirrors broke. Freddy's dead. All right. High five, everybody. Hey, Dad. It turns out that her dad is Freddy and he kills Nancy. That, you can see that one coming. I guess my overall point is I think Nancy deserved a more solidified way to go, if you will. Something that she couldn't really see coming, because I feel like I could see that coming. Maybe it's because I've seen this movie hundreds of times. Rewatch that scene. I mean, it's just so over the top. It just seems a little, it seems a bit campy. But not too bad considering that there's not too much campiness in this movie. Actually, none at all. I think that's probably the campiest part of this film. Moving right along with what I'm on the fence about when it comes to this movie. Freddy only killing kids from Elm Street. I mean, I get it. You know, like, he's going after the people who killed him. He's going after their kids. But Freddy himself in real life was a known child murderer. I mean, the Springwood Slasher, that's what they called him. I don't think they need that connective tissue of saying, well, you're the last of the Elm Street kids. Like, did he only murder kids on Elm Street? Because that's not a very broad canvas. I think this movie could have used this moment to expand on Freddy's mythology. You know, maybe he's not only killing the kids on Elm Street, and this is a realization that Nancy could possibly have. Maybe he's going after kids that are disturbed or have a bad upbringing, kids that are insecure, and maybe, you know, just stay in the Springwood area. But just the Elm Street kids, like, come on, how many movies can you make out of that? And not just that, but when these kids start talking about Fred Krueger coming into their dreams and killing them, again, Freddy Krueger is a known child murderer. There was a whole trial. Remember the judge got famous and the lawyers got fat? I would imagine somebody would put these pieces together of, oh fuck, this is that guy. I mean, why are these kids talking about this particular person? Why don't the adults in this film refer back to the actual Freddy Krueger? I mean, he existed in that town at one point in time. And there's one part in this film where Philip states what I think is one of the most important pieces of dialogue in this light.
The fact that we all dreamt about this guy before we ever met doesn't seem to impress anybody.
And with that being said, I'm also not a huge fan of Nancy not taking Freddy being back too seriously in the beginning of this movie. It's almost like she's ignoring it. I mean, Kristen made your old house out of old popsicle sticks, and she was singing the Freddy nursery rhyme that you finished when you walked into the room. These are red flags that Freddy is back. I don't see her playing it off as coincidence, and she doesn't really take it seriously until she sees Freddy in the dream realm when Kristen pulls her into her dreams. Again, maybe she's in denial up until this point, but they're not really clear on that fact, which is why I'm on the fence about it. Dr. Elizabeth Sims. This is a really cool character, I think. I think she's a very important character. She's the overall parental overlord that, doesn't want to believe the kid. She's a doctor, damn it. But where I'm on the fence with this character is her lack of arc. I really would have liked to have seen them not really dive more into her backstory. That's not necessary, but I would have liked to have seen her come to the realization that she's been wrong, that these kids are being murdered by something else not of this world. And I think she would have been a very useful person to help the kids in the end. I would have liked to have seen her have that justification of her wanting to do right by these children, even though her doing right in the beginning was actually doing them wrong, and be a better person than she came out to be. Now, with those out of the way, let's move on to what I do like about this movie. The opening sequence to this film is 100% Freddy Krueger. It's extremely haunting and sets up the proper tone of what this world is going to be.
7, 8, stay up late, 9, 10, again.
Again, referring back to part 2 of Freddy's Revenge, that movie seemed like a copy and paste of all other slasher films that were out at the time. It really grounds the different world that this movie is trying to take. And this part of the movie was actually executed with the help of many different elements, like the cinematography by Ray H. Wagner. He really took the magic that Jacques Haken had in the first film and he amplified it. His use of kiltered lighting and askewed shadows really dives us into this world. And it works beautifully with the practical effects. The practical effects in this movie is on point. I mean, part 1, the original movie was great. This one is even greater. The effects team did a wonderful job taking what was on this script and bringing it into real life. Like the let's get high scene when the track marks on her arm are seemingly thirsty for more drugs. It had to be really tough to do with practical effects, especially in the late 80s. And the artery puppeteer scene, which in my opinion is one of the most incredible slasher scenes ever in any slasher movie. That pulsating music, it just feels like you can just hear the blood pulsating through his veins. It adds to the painfulness. Like I can feel this moment. And then there's the scene where Freddy attempts to eat Kristen. This scene is magical. It's one of the most prominent scenes in this film, and it's orchestrated very well. Not just how well they go between the puppet and the claymation and how well that's actually done, but how everything's orchestrated at one time, how the camera rolls around the room so you can witness all the things happening at the same time and not just this central focus of this creepy ass Freddy snake trying to eat Kristen. As a child, it was bone chilling, and as an adult, it definitely holds up in effects, especially in comparison to the other slashers at this time. Now you wrap this all up in a beautiful package and you tie it up with the bow that is the score. They bring back the Freddy music, and I actually don't even remember if the Freddy music was in part 2. I don't think it is now that I think of it, and I didn't really think of it before. So the fact that I didn't think of it before tells me it wasn't in the second movie, but I could be wrong. Let me know in the comments below and I'll go check it out after I do this. God, I need to pay better attention. But the score in this film is fantastic. They redid the original music from the first. Now, granted, I will say that the music composed in the first movie was better, just by a hair, but this one has the added bonus of Dokken. That's right, Dream Warriors by Dokken. This is an incredible song, and just a few weeks ago I was at work and nobody knew what I was talking about, so I sat there and played it while we were at work, and everyone just looked at me like I was nuts while I'm over here rocking out to "'Cause we're the Dream Warriors." Ba-da-da-ba-ba-ba. That song was made for this movie, and Dokken really brought it home. That song is incredible and one of my favorite go-tos, especially during the Halloween season. Also, the cast and main characters of this film are very well balanced. They make sense. They don't feel forced. They feel like they had an honest communication with each other, and you dive into each character just enough so when they do die or almost die, you care about it. You feel for them. You're like, no, not Philip, or no, not this other guy whose name I can't remember at the moment. They have this relationship that seems appropriate for where they're at in this film. The fucking nut house. That's probably not the appropriate way to say that. This mental facility. And from what I can tell, it comes across that the whole cast was probably good friends off the set. Like, that shines through. Sometimes when people aren't good friends on set, you can tell on screen a little bit that, okay, they're just acting this through. But it seems like they had an earnest relationship off the camera as well. And this is probably a direct result of the director, Chuck Russell. This man took Wes Craven's vision, and just like the practical effects, he amplified it. He honed everything that Wes Craven did, and he did it in the heart of Wes Craven. I mean, for a long time, I thought Wes Craven directed this movie. I really did. I thought this was Wes Craven's like, okay, I'll come back and do another one. Now, he was a producer, which is whatever, but he also wrote the story. So Wes Craven's prints are all over this whole thing, but Chuck Russell put that vision in a great story that we all know and love as this movie. You can tell he had a clear vision, and he communicated this vision with his entire cast and crew. This movie is very unified. Unlike the movie before it that just seemed like a mess. It just seemed like no one knew what was going on, and the director's just like, I gotta get this movie done, and the actors are just like, I think I know what I'm doing. You know, everyone seemed to be on the same page. Not really translates well with audiences, especially this audience. And Chuck Russell's directing resume is pretty much all over the place. I mean, he directed The Mask, The Blob, and the TV show The Fringe, just to name a few. You know, it was a little wishy-washy. He did a lot of comedies and this, that, and the other, but I'm really glad he was tapped for this film. He had a great understanding of it, and he did a great job telling a story that was appropriate for this series. And a needed film for this series, because I honestly think if they made this movie any other way, Freddy would have died. I mean, like, really died. Like, the whole fucking franchise probably would have been killed. It almost was after the last movie. The return of Nancy, the way they brought her back makes sense. It's not just like a shoot-in, forced thing. It not only gives validity to what happened in the first movie, but it adds a quality that makes sense in this one, while neither acknowledging or dismissing what happened in the second movie. So you could honestly go from the first movie to the third movie, and you'll be okay, but it doesn't displace anything that happened in the second film, which is good if you're watching it like I am in release order. But I believe her character. I believe it makes sense for Nancy to be a dream analyst, if you will. And she also takes on this caretaker, motherly, nurturer role that these kids need. They don't have a parent, and she becomes that parent for them. I mean, they have parents, but, not ones that are there or care about them. She's been there. She's done that. She knows what to do. She is a scream queen and helps guide these children. And I think that's a perfect role for Nancy. And with her is brought back this house in a way that makes sense. It's not brought back in the light of, oh, Freddy's just haunting this house now. No, it's brought back in the sense that it's absorbed into Freddy's world. It's absorbed into his mythology. When you go into Freddy's world, this house is a part of this maze that you have to travel through now. And that makes sense. And I can't remember if they do that in the rest of the films. Like, I know they do with the house, but I'd really like to see other aspects in the future films. Like, maybe this hospital that they're in is also another part of the world in the next movie. I don't think it is, but I could be wrong. It's been a while since I've watched the future films of this franchise. So I hope that's the route they go, because that'd be a really cool concept that every little bit that Freddy's in, he absorbs and takes with him in the future. I think that's a really cool idea. And if it's not utilized in the future films, they should use it because it's a good idea and it's my idea. So hit me up for royalties. Thanks. And they also brought back John Saxton as Nancy's dad. Donald Thompson, or Lieutenant Thompson, or Security Guard Thompson. I'm not sure what he is in this movie, but I know his badge thing says security, which is not police. It's a little different. Guy's going through some tough times. I mean, yeah. Which is great for his character arc, and that's what I love about him being back, is we get to dive more into his character arc. Nancy's dad is the strongest male character that I can remember out of all the Freddy movies. Again, I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm not. And I'm glad we get to revisit his arc in this film. It was a good one, a nice little ending to it. His character arc is finished, and they didn't need to bring him back. You could tell that they wanted him back because he was a pretty pivotal point in the previous film. This is a man who's living his life knowing what's going on with Freddy. He knows that this guy that he helped kill has come back as a demon in kids' dreams and is killing them now. Imagine the guilt he lives with that, and that's what he lives in this movie. He's the living adaptation of that guilt, and I love that they brought him back, not only just to bring him back, but to bring him back as part of Freddy's death in this movie. It justifies his character. And again, I've said it a few times already, but again, it it finishes his arc, and that was a great way to do that. Now, Freddy Krueger himself. Now, Robert Englund is awesome. I can say that through every single one of these reviews. Well, most of these reviews. I mean, Robert Englund does great, but this is the pivotal Freddy. This is the Freddy that every movie going forward is striving for. In the first movie, we knew what Freddy was, but we didn't know what he was capable of. In this one, we know exactly what he's capable of, and they highlight that even more in this film. And not only that, but they bring in some new characteristics, like the very subtle Freddy jokes that he makes, which they totally run off the rails with in the future films, but this one, it's done just right. Any movie that they're going to remake or redo or whatever in the future, they need to copy and paste this version of Freddy. He is the version of Freddy. Which is why I'm actually pretty curious about where this movie's going to land on my Nightmare on Elm Street rankings. Yes, there's going to be a ranking, because I love the first one so much and I love this one so much. I'm not sure which one's gonna beat out the other, but if this one were to win, it would mostly be because of how Freddy is more hashed out in this film, how he becomes more of what we know Freddy to be in this movie. And lastly, on my what I like list, which there is a lot more I like about this movie, but I can honestly just talk for hours and hours and hours and discuss every minor detail I love about this film, but I'm not going to do that. If you want to do that, then just watch the movie and then come back and chat with me in the comments, because I'll chat with you. I love this fucking movie. But the last thing I'm putting on this list is the kills. Yes, there's a total number of 6 kills in this movie, and they're high quality kills. And the first movie brought us 4 kills, and 2 of those were pretty good. But this one is 6 quality kills. Well, 5 quality kills, and then the Wizard Master guy. I mean, that was probably the weakest one, because, Freddy just stabs him. I mean, how many times have we seen Freddy stab people? So 5 quality kills and 1 bonus kill. I don't know. I'm stretching this out anyway. Let my murder montage do the talking for me. Overall, this movie is the quintessential Nightmare on Elm Street, the one that most people will refer to as the best. And again, I might not disagree with them. We'll have to see when it comes to my ranking, because I'm really going to compare this one and the first one really closely to try to figure out which one I like the best and how that might change day by day. I don't know. But anyway, this movie does pull together everything that we know and love about Freddy. It pulls elements from the first movie and brings them into this one, and it sets the way for the future films. A good starting point to propel the rest of the series. It enhances the Freddy mythology, and again, adds some humor, just a little bit subtle humor that I personally think enhances Freddy's already charismatic personality. It's a quality slasher film and tells a wonderful story. And for all these reasons, I'm giving this movie an A+.
That was wonderful! Bravo! I loved that! Oh, it was great!
So there's my review for A Nightmare on Elm Street 3. Tell me, what do you think about this movie? I'm pretty sure if you're a Freddy fan like me, it's on your top shelf Freddy movies, but maybe you don't like this movie, and if you don't, I would actually be quite curious as to why. So please let me know if you like this movie, if you don't, and why or why not in the comments below. Also, be sure to check out some more of my videos, and as always, stay trigger happy, my friends. Peace.
A nice stroll there, asshole.